The first story we're gonna do is Ouija board warning. Last year, Tasha went to a friend's house for a party. Around 1 in the morning, the group decided to use an Ouija board. Tasha was the only one who believed in accounts of the paranormal, so she was hesitant when her friends brought out the board. But instead of giving her friends more reasons to tease her when it came to the paranormal, she acted as if she didn't believe in such activity. They began asking the board questions. They started with a few normal questions and nothing really exciting happened. Then someone asked if the spirit wanted to hurt them, and it responded with only one. The group started to get creeped out at this point, and rightfully so. When one friend asked the natural follow-up question, who, the board spelled out Natasha, Tasha's full name. Tasha then left the room while her friends continued playing, but found out later that night that the group forgot to say goodbye to the board. Anyone knows that closing the interaction with the spirit is bad before stopping. Needless to say, she was nervous. After this, Tasha has no memory of the night. She only remembers getting a migraine and nosebleeds. Her friends took videos of her acting strangely, speaking with a changed voice, and a few instances of her talking in other languages. However, that night wasn't the only time this happened. In the days following, Tasha's parents reported the same things happening. Once again, she remembered nothing but migraines and nosebleeds. About 2 weeks later, she was back to normal, or so she thought. Tasha was suddenly hospitalized for an excruciating pain in her kidney so bad that it almost shut down. The doctors tried everything but couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then, on the day she was scheduled for surgery, the pain suddenly stopped. 1 day later, Tasha was released. Since that incident, she has never felt like she was truly alone. Sometimes, she feels someone grabbing her hands or neck, making it difficult to breathe. Tasha has always believed in the paranormal, but this experience made it far more real for her. Second story is my great-grandmother's house. Corey loves their grandparents but hates their house. The house has been in their family for over a century, and something has always felt off about it. The rooms would always feel cold despite the air being off, and visitors often reported feeling like they were being watched. For about a month, Corey and their parents were living in the house. It was during this time that an event happened that terrified them. One night, they woke for no particular reason and went to the bathroom. Suddenly, the door shut and locked behind them. The lock on the door was broken, so it shouldn't have been able to lock, let alone close on its own. Then, the light in the bathroom went out. They had always been interested in ghost hunting and had a ghost hunting app on their phone. They'd used it in the past but assumed it didn't work. The app was supposed to tell its user whatever the ghost was saying. As they opened the app, they felt something or someone breathing down their neck. A few seconds later, the door unlocked and the radar read one word: run. They ran back to hide and hid under the covers until they fell asleep. The next night, they woke again and went into the kitchen for a snack. It was there that they saw a dark figure pick something up from the pantry, turn to them, and then disappear. They tried to return to their room, but the living room door slammed shut as they walked toward it. Again, they felt someone breathing down their neck. They kept pulling at their door until it finally opened. Back in their room, hiding under the covers, they couldn't sleep because they kept hearing footsteps on the porch. The next night, they decided to try sleeping in the den. Their phone was left open to the ghost hunting app when it picked up a signal. It read Quentin, their great-grandfather's name. That was the last activity the user experienced before they moved out. The third story is called Ghost in the House. Johnny has always been into the paranormal and has experienced a fair number of encounters throughout their life. Recently married, Johnny moved into a beautiful little house in a quiet neighborhood. They had only been living there a short time when they started noticing strange occurrences. The first happened while Johnny was upstairs in bed and they were downstairs watching television. Suddenly, he ran into the living room and asked if they had just been in the bedroom. They answered no, and Johnny panicked. He said that as he had been lying in bed, someone had pushed the blanket up so his feet were exposed, and a cold hand had caressed his foot. To avoid the spirit, they moved their room to a different bedroom in the house, but the activity continued. They heard heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Bowls and pans would spin clockwise on the counter. dark, full-bodied figures would walk past their bedroom door and vanished. A knife was once lifted and thrown across the kitchen by an unseen force, and the dogs would bark into the corners of the house. Once they even looked up into the window of the master bedroom and saw an elderly woman staring down at them. Eventually, the young couple had enough and talked with their neighbors to learn about the history of the house. They learned that the house had been built in the 1970s, and the elderly lady who had owned the house before them died at the age of 101. The two had no doubt this woman was the spirit tormenting the home, so the writer decided to go upstairs and make peace. They informed the spirit that they intended to remain in the house and they promised to keep it nice. They offered to help her cross over, but also said she was welcome to stay if her presence became more peaceful. Since then, the couple has been living peacefully in the home, and the old woman occasionally makes herself known. The fourth story is The Lady in the Corner. Strange things have been happening in Kyle's house for as long as they can remember. One night, they woke to the sound of someone standing just outside their room, the floor creaking under their weight. They closed their eyes and pretended to be asleep, hoping it would leave them alone. Whatever it was entered the room and stopped right beside the bed. They could feel the presence there. They cracked open their eyes, hoping to still appear asleep while stealing a glimpse at the presence. A white figure stood in front of them. At first, they wanted to call to their brother, but they were too afraid to antagonize the ghost. Eventually, their eyes closed, and when they opened them again a few minutes later, the figure was gone. Thinking their father's bedroom would be a safer place to sleep, they wrapped themselves in a blanket and made their way across the house. But when they entered the dining room, they felt as though several pairs of eyes were staring at them. They kept going until they reached the doors of the bedroom, but it was locked. Instead of going back to their room, they went into the living room and fell asleep. Around 4 in the morning, they woke again, and sitting on top of the television in the corner was the white figure. This time, it was clear the figure was an elderly woman. She was somewhat blurry, and her eyes were darker than her pale body. She said their name and tried coaxing them outside. They screamed, and the figure vanished. They hid under the blanket until morning. When daylight had come, they told their story to their family. Their brother believed every word, saying he had seen the exact same figure watching him sleep. The last story I'm gonna do is The House by the Cemetery. Sarah, their best friend Bella, and her little sister and brother went to Bella's grandparents' house to spend the night when they were younger. Although the house was next to a cemetery, no one was too worried. Sarah was rather fascinated, but not yet wary that Bella's grandpa helped them set up a tent in the backyard. That night, they were up late watching a movie. When it was over, Sarah and Bella left the tent and went to sit on the swings in the backyard. Bella began telling stories about the haunted house she used to live in. After a while, something in the cemetery caught the Sarah's attention. When their eyes adjusted to the dark, they made out a faceless, horned figure looking at them. Through the darkness, Bella didn't see the figure at first, but when the Sarah directed her attention to it, she freaked out. Both of them ran for the tent, zipping themselves inside. They turned on music to try to help them fall asleep, but it didn't muffle the sounds of a fence rattling like something wanted to climb over and a repeating, terrifying bull-like huff. The next morning, they tried to tell their story to Bella's family. Bella's grandparents were skeptical, but her sister and mother, who had lived with Bella in the haunted house, believed every word.